You're listening to the Things About Nature podcast. Coming to you from a city that never sleeps is me, your host, Rockshana. I invite you to join me in truly honest, passionate, and fun talks that motivate, invigorate, and maybe inspire. Even though we're no longer in the mile high, the sky is still the limit. Everything and anything goes. So let's start talking about things of that nature. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Things That Nature podcast. I'm your host, Rockshana, and of course, like always, I have a new friend. Today we're going to be talking about, I don't know what. Like I think I know sometimes, but I never really know. So we'll just see what happens, and we're just on for the ride. So today, our new friend is Deborah Lukovich. So how are you, Deborah?
I'm great. And I love that this is about conversation and just seeing where it goes.
Yeah, like I said, if we talk about unicorns and fairies and whatnot, I'm cool with it.
Or Alita Battle Angel. I love talking about that movie.
There you go. It works out for me. Now, what part of the world are you in?
All right. So right now I'm in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. I've been here for about 18 months though. So I'm a newbie. And it really happened after I got the courage to leave my Midwestern hometown and my young adult children. And I sold my house and I took what could fit in my car and I drove down to start my new life in a beach town. So I'm antsy again though. So I think my next place I'm going to go is Annapolis, Maryland.
Oh, that's a different.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of like between my hometown of Milwaukee, Wisconsin and Florida in that Maryland has seasons, but the average temperature is 10 degrees warmer than Milwaukee all year long. And there's 90 days of more sunshine. Okay. So it's got that.
Deal with sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to get all up in your business and ask you, did a life-changing event happen to make you make that decision to leave everything and hop on over somewhere new?
Oh yeah. It all began with midlife unraveling, which it started about 6 to 8 years ago. So the interesting thing is that my midlife unraveling coincided with the synchronistic event that brought an irrational drive to a desire to study depth psychology, which is psychology of the unconscious. I call it soul psychology. So I had no idea what I was going to do with this expensive new education. So for a while, I just called it expensive therapy, but my unconscious was in charge. So my 5 years of master's PhD work and my research helped me make sense of the crazy things that were unleashed from my unconscious once I knew my 24-year marriage was ending, including finding the sort of unconscious hidden motivation for marrying this man in the first place. And I loved him, but I also discovered that I had married him to save me from my chaotic experiences of men and love and sexuality and spirituality. And then my research topic came out of nowhere. And I remember being in one of my classes and I had this desire to write about what I call the 50 Shades of Grey phenomenon. I was like really intrigued by the opposing reaction to it. And whenever there's like opposing reaction to something that's very emotional, oh, there's something really great working there. So I felt like I came out of the closet in my class. I was sitting here and I'm like, I really want to write about this 50 Shades of Grey phenomenon. And here I am like in a master's level course. And the professor said, well, I suggest you follow the energy. So I was swept up in experience during that. So I was living all these depth psychology concepts in real time. It was crazy. And then I got through my research, got my PhD. I knew I wanted to write a memoir because part of my experience that was so juicy and had to do with getting swept up in a love affair was part of what I analyzed, was part of what I studied. So I knew I wanted to write a memoir after that because all the juicy stuff isn't needed in a dissertation. And I'm still working on the memoir. But in the meantime, last fall, I wanted to write a book that turned into your soul is talking. Are you listening? So that's kind of like a Reader's Digest version of midlife unraveling, a little reconstruction, and what I'm doing now.
Okay. And I mean, no offense by me asking this next question. When you say midlife unraveling, are you talking about just midlife crisis or having that moment of like your own like life light bulb moment?
Well, it's everything. I mean, I think the reason that I call it unraveling, and I don't shy away from crisis. In fact, it's, I'm concerned that people stay away from the word crisis. And because a midlife crisis is about this moment where you realize you've been living an illusion, or that the things that you thought were true and the assumptions that you made about humanity or marriage or life or whatever, they're just fall apart. And it's a kind of identity crisis. And that's a crisis. So, but unraveling is a really great way to look at after you realize you have the moment of crisis. Unraveling is about unraveling like a ball of yarn. Like, okay, how did I get myself here? And then what does that mean for moving forward? And so it's almost like you go back a little bit, not to vent, not to get mad at your parents and all that kind of stuff, but really just to pull enough forward to help you make meaning in a way that contributes to how you move forward in an empowered way. So you can't kind of skip the whole going back a little bit, but you don't want to get stuck in it, because you need to find the meaning in the experience. And then that helps you move forward.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
And I had crazy, crazy things happen to me. In fact, when the moment came where I realized, oh, my marriage it's ending. Like I knew it was ending, but there was this moment where it's like, oh, because the familiar is like a cocoon for you. The familiar, even if it's not a great familiar and it's not working anymore, it's comforting. And so when I got to the point where it's like emotionally, psychologically, this is ending, all this stuff erupted from my unconscious that had to do with men and sex and boundaries. Like it was crazy. The universe was throwing this stuff at me one after another that challenged me to develop a new relationship when it came to interacting with especially men out in the world.
Do you think we would say you changed, but through the process, did you think of like, no, I just want to leave this as it is and just blindfold and keep it going?
Oh, totally. I'm a very manic person. So manic being I'm always up. I'm a goal setter. I'm achievement oriented. Like I started a business. I started a nonprofit. I was very masculine in that way. Masculine being very linear, very goal oriented, et cetera. And I remember the moment that I was like, oh, I have been in denial. So I didn't see things until bad things happened. Like my business fell apart and my staff turned against me. And I was like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, my now ex-husband and I discovered he was an alcoholic. 24 years of marriage. Never knew that. And then my son struggled a lot in his elementary school education. And all these things came together. So this one week I went to see a life coach to explore, like, why did my team turn against me? What did I do wrong here? And then during that same week, my husband's alcoholism climaxed, peaked. And my son, who at the time was probably in 5th grade, said he didn't want to live anymore. So now all of a sudden, it wasn't about why a business fell apart. It was about, oh, this is about my relationships with my family. And so the tension totally turned then inward. And also became more intimate. So yes, I was in denial. And I learned that your unconscious will keep trying to get your attention, keep trying to get your attention, keep trying to get your attention. And it will keep doing more dramatic things until finally you're paying attention to the right thing. And that was dramatic and very difficult. And then at the same time, because I just had that moment where I was like, am I living that movie with the alcoholic husband and this and that? I was like, I couldn't believe it. Like, this is my life. I can't believe it. And I think as a coping mechanism, I told myself two things. The first was, okay, I can do this. I know there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel. I know I'll be stronger. I know it will be okay, but it'll be different. And then the other thing was like, oh my God, that's my movie. So I started actually looking at my experience as a Netflix series. And that's what I do with my coaching clients is I'm like, I want you to be so curious about your unique experience of being a human being, because it's a unique expression of a universal story. And it's like your own Netflix series. And sometimes it's got tragedy, and sometimes it's a rom-com. I have that. And sometimes it's love affair. And sometimes it's just stand-up comedy. Like, it has everything. And we need it all, because the human experience is about all of it, not just, the plateau.
Right. It's kind of like if someone would say, well, that's life. Stuff happens.
Yeah. Or my friend who says, yeah, life got lifey this year.
Life got lifey.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when it comes to, someone who's potentially going through this in denial, but more afraid because of lack of support, what would you say to them about, having support behind you, whether it be from your kids, family, or whomever?
Well, when people come to me that's a really good question, actually. And often the reason why we are where we are is because we projected the fulfillment of certain needs by other people. So is support important? Yes. Is it a weekly wine date with a friend or your sisters or whatever? Yes. But also part of the journey is going back and reparenting yourself and giving your inner child what it didn't get in childhood. And again, you don't have to demonize your parents. Everybody does, some people do experience trauma, right? That's different. But we all get the ways that our patterns of thinking and behaving in childhood. And then eventually, sometimes some of them don't work anymore. So part of it is, what didn't you get that now you get now? So really your biggest support has to come from another part of you. So I look at our unconscious or our psyche or all of that as we have different characters. And this is where the Greek myths or the Roman myths or Irish myths or whatever were really useful, because all of our different patterns and emotions and experiences of being human used to be personified as a god or a goddess or a story like the hero's journey or whatever. And then we sort of got away from that. And by realizing that we have like a cast of characters inside of us, and some of them haven't been allowed to come to the surface when you need them, right? So you have an inner father, you have an inner mother, you have an inner child, I have characters who come to the surface when needed. I call one of them my inner lawyer. My inner lawyer was freaked out when I found my inner child, because my inner child now, I just wanted to play beach volleyball. I did cartwheels. I wanted to stay out till 1 a.m, and go into work with a hangover. And my inner lawyer's like, no, you're not being responsible. Oh my gosh. But what I learned was my inner lawyer wasn't a judge. So I got to know him. He said, I just want to make my case. And then you make your decision, but let me make my case. So if I listened to him, he'd go away for a while. And then I would be like, okay, inner child, let's go play. And so, so that's a long answer to your question about, yes, support is necessary, but really like the biggest source of support is this part